Hi, I'm Garmbreak1, and this is Midgardia's cool crowdfunding show. I'm here today with Vincent Baker. How's it going?
It's going great. Happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, I'm glad to have you. So, here to tell us a little bit about Black Paper Moon, so why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so Black Paper Moon sort of combines my love of the whimsy and the spooky that my wife and I both share, and it puts it into a very sort of like a pick up and play style tabletop RPG. It's very rules light, super rules light, and is meant to be able to make a character very quickly and just get right into the game session, which is a very different from my previous tabletop role playing game, Otherworlds, which is more of a rules light to medium crunch and is more tactical and then has a very in-depth character creation system. This one, Black Paper Moon, is more improv, more sort of like spur of the moment and kind of create on the fly and centered on the role playing aspects a lot.
Right on. Uh, I see that it's inspired by. That is is that the box or the?
Yeah, so this is the box which will contain everything in it. So the rule book is in the box, and so is the dice and some of the extra ancillary stuff.
That is pretty nice. That's
Yeah,
about the
thank you.
size of an average volume of manga. Oh, it's even got the
Yeah,
fake pages on the side.
yeah,
That's an
exactly.
that's an excellent touch there.
Thank you. And then our next game in February will actually be the same style, so you can actually start stacking them next to each other.
Nice. I like that.
Thank you. I honestly I was just thinking like as a game designer, the first sort of game I put out that some people know me for is Spell Slingers, which is a simple card game I made. And I for Spell Slingers, I solely was focused on like the game mechanics and making sure it was fun. But since then, it's been several years, I sort of realized that I want to sort of analyze every single facet of a game when it comes to game design. So I want to think of the packaging, I want to think of even the amount of components, what components it has, the rules. Like I want to think of it from every aspect. So when I was looking at the games that I was making, I was like, how can I make the box design itself like something that actually seems like it had thought put into it, opposed to just being put into a normal box. So that's when I came up with the idea of the sort of like manga inspired design, which I haven't seen done anywhere else.
Yeah, I've seen similar ideas with different mediums, but not manga specifically. Uh, like we've had one on here that was some VHS cassettes, and like the three volumes came in a slipcase.
Yeah,
Um,
and see, I love that stuff. I mean, I guess I don't think that this was on my mind, but you bringing that up reminds me of the Blockbuster game. They released like a Blockbuster tabletop
yeah,
game, and it comes in like the Blockbuster case. And so I just feel like having as many of those moments as possible, it really plays up to the experience that a player will feel, which is a very important aspect for me.
right. It gets you in the mood. You're just like, oh yeah, right. This is the manga game.
Exactly. So you know where the inspirations come from. Now, of course, there are some. I mean, there can be some financial, problems. So it's much easier to just sort of put things in a normal deck box. So I am sympathetic to people that need to sort of lower things. So for example, like this box is a very standard box where it opens up this way. And ideally, I want the box to be able to open where you have like the lid, like a closing like magnetic flip lid. But that is a lot more expensive whenever you compare it to the whole order. So it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, well, based on the funding, we can go from sort of the more basic design, and if it goes up in funding, we can sort of start adding the magnetized lids and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, one of the many fun uses of stretch goals.
Exactly.
So, how does the average session of Black Paper Moon go?
Yeah, so the average session, basically you just bring this box with you somewhere. You take everything out. You have people make a character. I actually tested this with new people that had never played before, and I'm just like, here's the criteria to make your character. Here you go, and they were able to make the character within 5 to 10 minutes. So like just right out the gate, you're able to make a really quick character. You can sort of go like super improv route and just like hang on to the seat of your pants and just make up the story as you go, or you can go off of something from your head. There is a story written in the game for an example, so you can definitely follow that, especially to get comfortable with the rules and build an understanding for what Black Paper Moon is. There is a story to follow in this that you can play to, but essentially, as you're playing, all it requires is six-sided dice. I'm a huge fan of the six-sided die because just growing up as a kid, you just find those dice laying everywhere, and it just sort of harkens back to I think that time of being a child or like I don't know, to me being having a game that's open to any age and just being open to like being very accessible for people to play is very important to me. So I just feel like the six-sided dice represents that a lot. As you're playing, though, the main mechanic that really sort of defines itself for Black Paper Moon is you have a little what we call a die tower, which is composed of several dice that you form as you're playing the game, and if it falls over, your character will die or something bad will happen depending on the severity. So if you do more of a one-shot style, it's going to be more leaning towards the death component. So you go into that knowing that. But if you want to do a longer form campaign, it doesn't have to be death. It can be a negative consequence that sort of propels the story forward.
Right, right. Like losing your left arm and then having to get it replaced with some sort of cybernetic thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And when it comes to sort of like this world, it's all set into a fictional world that is mostly magic based and fantasy based, but is definitely very open to interpretation. It's very open to sort of having like a magical mechanized arm that you can use. Uh, even something like Fullmetal Alchemist for anime fans out there, something like that could definitely work in Black Paper Moon.
Yeah. Back to the D6s. This is sort of like a tangent, I guess, but it also plays nicely into the like Japanese TTRPG aesthetics because those are very very much emphasize like one shot construction and also use D6s primarily like up until very recently because that was the only thing you could really get. Whereas over here in the West, we had the standard D&D dice for a much longer time. Is that intentional or was that just a nice coincidence?
A nice coincidence because I actually didn't really realize this until recently. Especially, I was looking at the new Konosuba tabletop RPG, or like new to the West because they ported it over. And when I was looking at it, I was like, wow, this is very similar to Otherworlds in a lot of ways. Like a lot of the way that RPG was set up, it's probably actually the closest comparison to Otherworlds that I found. And then going back to Black Paper Moon, like yeah, I'm not actually super familiar with playing a lot of TRPGs the Japanese from Japan. So like I was just very I don't know. I did realize that though, but it was more of a recent discovery.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff there that does not get translated unfortunately, but more and more is coming out every year.
Yeah, I guess it is interesting too to just know that like I designed a bunch of stuff that happened to coincide with things that I had no idea was there, but it's a like you said, it's a happy coincidence.
Yeah. So like the touchstones of this are kind of, like Ruby, Konosuba, like you said. Uh there were others on the list. What was that? Soul
Yeah,
Eater, that was the other
Soul
big one.
Eater's a big one. Yeah, and with the Konosuba one, bringing that back up. One thing I thought was interesting about the official licensed product for the Konosuba tabletop RPG is that it didn't place, to me, from what I saw, it didn't place a heavy emphasis on the quirkiness and sort of like the hilarity that Konosuba has, which essentially for those watching that might not be aware of Konosuba, the main premise is you have this group of characters and they all uh, are really let's I'm trying to think of the way I put this. They all have like a quirk about them that makes them funny, but also like kind of useless. But they also are sort of powerful in their own way. So what I mean by this is you have a character, for example, where she has this very high level casting ability where she can just make something explode. She can essentially just drop a nuke somewhere and just blow up everything. It's a very high level magical ability that few people have. And she has that and nothing else. She just focused on that one ability, and that's what she has. And after she uses it, she's just like done for. Like she's exhausted, she can't move, she's just done for. And so she just has this like one time spell and then she's out. And then you have like a crusader who wants to protect and defend people, but you realize that she actually just loves taking damage because she loves the pain. And so she puts herself into situations that jeopardizes her own health and maybe even the safety of others simply because she wants to be hit. So you have these characters, and so to me, that is the fundamental core of what Konosuba is. And it's not really that's not like a mechanic in the tabletop RPG that I saw, but in Black Paper Moon, if you want to do something like that, it actually fits very nicely because not only do you have your powers and your weapons, etc., in Black Paper Moon, You also have a drawback associated with your powers, and you also have a deviation, which is sort of like a quirk that you have that will fit in very much narratively, but can also affect you mechanically as well. So it might be that you always run in headfirst into battle without thinking things through, or without listening to someone complete their sentence. Stuff like that, and I feel like that's a core mechanic in Black Paper Moon, and I feel like that's important to sort of have those moments of hilarity that sort of ensue into the chaos.
So this is sort of like an action comedy kind of game. Like, 75% action, 25% comedy, that kind of.
Yeah, it definitely leans itself to wanting to be comical. Um, Now, of course, everyone can sort of steer that however they want, where they can try to make it more comical or less comical. You could play it very serious. I mean, the idea of like building this like die tower, does build tension there. So I could see someone playing that in a very like serious way. But we already have something like Dread, which is kind of more of your serious horror take, where you could make that comical, I guess. But when you think of Dread, you think of it being very serious and this sort of like serious horror based thing. And like I said, my wife and I are very into sort of the spooky side of things, but we're not like super into like just like the dreadful side of things. So that's why we want to make a game that reflects that.
Right on, right on. And yeah, like as soon as I saw the name in the cover art, I'm like, is this inspired by Soul Eater?
Yeah, yeah, and actually the name was chosen sort of right before the Kickstarter. It actually had a different name, and I did a lot of research and I did a lot of testing, getting a lot of feedback, just talking to a lot of different people, and really looking into it before I made that change. But yeah, the name was actually changed right before the Kickstarter went up. So yeah, it was originally called A Bittersweet Trick or Treat, which technically I released a game of that name years ago. But it was kind of like what I call like a soft launch. It was just a PDF. It was very small. And it wasn't done through Kickstarter or anything like that. I didn't really promote it that much. It's sort of like a freebie that people got for signing on to my newsletter. And I think it still might be there, but it's very small in comparison to Black Paper Moon. I basically like 10x'd it in Black Paper Moon, and really like it was very, very, very bare bones. Whereas like now it still rules light, but I definitely like filled out some information that would be needed for people to really have a easy time running it.
Yeah, I mean, Bittersweet Trick or Treat is an excellent name. Like I
Thank
gotta
you.
say.
Thank you. I wanted I appreciate that, and so we call it ABSTOT for short, sort of the acronym. But I guess I wanted it to be able to definitely be the game that you would think of for like Halloween time, but not be stuck to Halloween time. So with like Black Paper Moon, like you could play it for like a fun summer camp, setting, where you have like your campers out, and then there's like mysterious dark creatures out in the woods, and you play into that theme a bit. Or maybe you bring Black Paper Moon onto more of a Krampus setting, with and having him and more of a Dark Christmas. So I felt like Black Paper Moon, the name was a bit more uh, it's a bit more adaptable to different settings outside of Halloween.
It's also really evocative, like beyond Paper Moon being the opening for Soul Eater. It's a cool sounding name.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. And the name actually, when I was testing the name with different people, there were a lot of people I asked that had never watched Soul Eater and they're not familiar with the music or anything, and they really like the name, and they like the name more than the other name. So that sort of helped steer me in that direction as well.
Yeah. Speaking of names, with the Die Tower, did that start as Die Tower or did it start as Dice Tower? And you're like, wait, but Die is Die.
It's a great question. It immediately was Die Tower. Like I immediately, I don't really know how I came to came to the idea of it, but I was thinking of literally like placing dice on a tower, and then it was like, okay, die tower. Like it was like one to one, like it was made at the same time.
Right on. It's clever. I like it.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of like wordplay. And again, to like thinking of game design more so like more than just the idea of the game itself. Thinking about the box design. It's also about the words you choose, the names you choose. Um, I actually might put too much thought into the words chosen because I'm that kind of person that can't turn my brain off, and I'm constantly thinking. And I'm sort of like second guessing myself. Or I'm like, should I go with this word or this word? And each word, like I think of like each connotation it could have, and like the different meanings it could have, or I don't know. It really it's really something I put a lot of thought into. So a lot of decisions you see made in any of my games was a very conscious decision, even if it's one that someone might disagree with. I at least I'd say 99% of the time have a reason for making that decision, and I could at least back it up with my own perspective. And at least to this day, I haven't heard anyone bring up a like a criticism or anything that I couldn't like I didn't have a valid like I didn't have my own perspective on as to like why I chose that. You know, it wasn't just like a mishap or I just wasn't thinking about it or whatever.
which is great for the finished product, but can really torment you in the creation process.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's tough. Like I said, I'm always thinking about it, but it's also like what I enjoyed the most. It's like when I was in high school, I had an entrepreneurship class, and we had to create a business. And I was kind of like a cruising C student. Like I was just trying to like just get by and just enjoy my day to day. And so I was gonna just sell candy. That was kind of like the go-to for students that didn't really want to put in much effort but still get a passing grade. And my teacher though knew that I drew all the time and I did a lot of writing and I was into games, and she's like, Vincent, I might would allow other people to sell candy, but I cannot let you sell candy because you were like super creative, you're artistic, you have to do something else. So she really forced me to do something else. And at that time is when I started making Other Worlds. And so I put out like a business plan for that, and then I did really well. I won the business competition, and I feel like I had a point to to this, but I'm already like losing it. But yeah, I forgot where I was going with that, and I do apologize. But yeah, I was getting too carried away.
No, it's yeah,
I
almost
can be
brother.
a I can be a little bit I have so many thoughts that rush into my head that sometimes they conflict with each other, and I can be a bit like I don't know, spacey, I guess, which is a weird characteristic that you wouldn't think of someone who thinks intently about everything all the time, is very analytical, but I don't know, I get lost in thought sometimes, or I start thinking about this other thing, and I don't know, it's fun, but it also could be a bit of trouble.
Yeah, no, same thing happens to me and most creative types. Honestly, you're just like talking about something else. You're like, hold on, I have a solution for this problem. And you need to like scurry away to go write something.
Oh yeah, I have to make notes all the time. Like I have a list of things to do, a list of notes to always keep it on my mind. Or even like when I had to I had to ship out some packages this morning, and I drove right past the post office, and I was like, oh no, I missed it. Okay, so I had to turn around, and it was just like because I was thinking about different things and thinking about different game design stuff. So yeah, it's the life I live.
Yeah, yeah. So, any other final things you'd like to bring up about Black Paper Moon while we're here?
That is a great question. It's very open. And again, let's see. Anything else I'd like to bring up about Black Paper Moon? Um, so whenever I design games, I also try to design games that sort of fill in their own niche in sort of the repertoire of games I've released. So like in my mind for a while I was thinking like I'm not going to release another tabletop RPG aside from other worlds. Like that's kind of like that's the first game I made, and that's like my big game, and the game that I've kind of made since my childhood and sort of formed it from there. um but Black Paper Moon plays to such a different degree, like it being so much more of like, oh, you just bring this box with you, open it up somewhere and just play with people. It's very easy to have them jump in, they can make a character very quickly. They don't have to, sometimes the more the medium crunch games can not be for everyone, especially if you're talking to a more casual audience. So to me, like I'm very much aware that not every game is meant for every person. Um, so it's just like, okay, what strengths and weaknesses does this game have? What is it set up to? So if it seems like up your alley for those reasons, definitely give it a look. It's definitely designed for a specific function. So if you love the spooky and the whimsical, if you love the idea of Black Paper Moon and its influences that we talked about, and if you don't mind rolling some six-sided dice, then yeah, I'd definitely give it a look. I'm also very open to like feedback and just always trying to improve and just do better, and just release the best games we can.
Right on. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this. It looks really cool, and like I said, that box is going to look fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. I very much appreciated that. Yeah, I want it to be the exact same size of a manga. Now, you might can tell it's not quite the same exact size. I'm kind of limited with the manufacturer I'm currently using. There is a chance that we can get it to be the exact manga size, but that is a lot higher of a goal. So currently, it is stuck at this size unless we hit around 18,000, which is a very, very big goal that I don't think we're hitting on this Kickstarter project. But the good news is there will be several games released at this size, so they will all like look nice together, and it's close enough to where I think people will still enjoy it.
Right on. And with the 01 on the side there, any expansions, naturally fit into that the volume pattern.
Well, actually, that brings up a great question. So I've been so the most like contested decision I've made about Black Paper Moon has actually been the 01 here, and the reason why is because if we plan on doing several games of this, we'll have several 01s, and there is a like people are like we don't need several games that say 01 01 01 01 because it just looks weird at that point. But also, we don't want a game to say like 01 02 because then people might think they can't buy this without having 01. Like they might think that they're connected. So there's that's the main that's the main controversy going on with Vindicated is just trying to decide like what to do with the numbering because there's sort of a good argument for either side and sort of what to do with that.
Yeah, no,
So
like it's I like it, but I absolutely see the argument against it.
it's one of those things where everyone that we ask like it until you put it. Like people that change their mind don't only change their mind when you show them a second game or a third game with it that all say
Yeah.
01. When you do it in isolation, people love it. Like by itself, it's been 100% unanimous. People love it. It's only when you start like adding other games to it that would also be 01 where people are like, I don't know if I like this.
Well, I still like it.
Okay, well I'm happy to have your opinion on it because honestly that is weirdly the biggest struggle I'm currently facing with Black Paper Moon is this dumb number if it should be on the side of the box or not.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how that ends up when it hits production.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that. I always try to like I always try to tackle something new. I try to be like innovative with my design. So luckily we've gotten some good feedback on the sort of the tone, the setting, the die tower mechanics, and even to the point where like I even came up with this concept of a broom rifle. So like our witch here has not only a broom that she rides, but it's a broom rifle. So we've gotten some good feedback on that. Just sort of the ideas that I put together with the game.
Right on. Well, Vincent, it's been great having you on, and thank you for putting up with my increasingly gravelly voice.
Hey, you sound great, man. I appreciate you having me on. It was a fun time. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak about Black Paper Moon.
Yeah, for sure. And for those of you watching this, there's a link below. Go back Black Paper Moon. There's a broom rifle. If you like action, comedy, and like spooky, spooky whimsy. Spooky whimsy is a great phrase, great to say. Go back it right now. It's up for
Thank
another 20 days when this comes out. So, yeah.
thank you very much.
And yeah, thank you. And for those of you watching, have a good night.